Welcome, everyone. We are so pleased to have you here today, and we're going to go ahead and get started with today's webinar. My name is Kirsten Kippen. I'm with Idealist Consulting, and we are here today with CQ Roll Call to talk about simplifying advocacy. So before we introduce the guest presenters today, just a couple logistical items to get out of the way. First, housekeeping. You can use the questions feature to ask questions through your toolbar, and we will answer these at the end of the webinar. We know your time is very valuable, so we've scheduled this webinar to be about 30 to 40 minutes, and we are happy to answer as many questions as time allows. An audio note, you will not need a mic for this webinar since you're automatically muted to improve quality, but if we have an audio issue on our side, we'll address it publicly. And of course, we will be sending the slide deck and recordings after the webinar to all registrants. So with that, we will do some introductions. So as I said, my name is Kirsten Kippen. I'm just going to be the moderator today. And I'm the marketing manager with Idealist Consulting, which is based out of Portland, Oregon. And we work with nonprofits and small businesses to implement Salesforce. And a big part of what we do is integrating Salesforce with great solutions like CQ Roll Call. So I'm really pleased to have a couple guests from CQ Roll Call with me today. And with that, I will hand it over to you guys.
Great, thank you. Again, thanks everybody for joining us. This is Frank Musso, National Sales Director of Partnerships at CQ Roll Call. I'm really excited as far as that we have launched a partnership with Salesforce via the app in March, but also really excited about our partnership launching with Idealist Consulting. For some of you that don't know CQ Roll Call, we're owned by the Economist Group. We've literally been in existence since the 1940s. So we like to think of ourselves as the pioneers in the advocacy space. Today, you hear from Bryan Fratkin, our Director of Advocacy Engagement, going over simplified advocacy. At the end, you'll have my contact information, so please, as far as follow up with any of us regarding any, as far as questions you might have. Now, give it to Bryan.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning for some of you. My name is Bryan Fratkin, as Frank explained. I work with CQ Roll Call. I'm the Director of Advocacy Engagement, and what that basically means is simply that I have a really fun job of taking issues and figuring out how we can address them to a larger group. And so what I'll be going through today is the idea that issue advocacy itself is changing. It's ongoing. The landscape is no longer sort of a stepchild of government relations, and we want people to take action and write their legislator, and that's it. What advocacy is these days is a lot more. You see it on TV, you see it in the news, you see it everywhere. I liken it to some of the commercials that we see on TV these days that don't have prices, that are talking about how great the product is and whatnot, and that's a lot of what issue advocacy has become. So I'll talk through that, and then more importantly, I'll talk through some of the data points that we collect. So it's not just affecting change on the state and federal level, and it would be great if every time that we launched an advocacy effort or we asked people to take action that worked. It's not always going to work, but what is going to work is the fact that from every one of those actions you collect a data point that you can bring into Salesforce that you can use to then target those folks further. And so as I get into it here, just a quick background on CQ Roll Call. Let me actually click over to the presentation. We are the only company connecting communications, advocacy, legislative tracking, and insight and analysis for Congress. What that means is that we have the largest press corps on the Hill, 180 people covering everything that happens within the walls of Congress and around Capitol Hill and Washington, D.C. each and every day. We started in 1945. In 1996, working with C-SPAN, we created the idea of online advocacy. They asked, why can't people who watch what we're doing and what we're showing on TV and all these legislators talking be able to reach out to those legislators through email? Things have changed, obviously. Faxes came and went. Email addresses have come and gone. It's now down to web forms. But in 2011 and in 2012, we delivered more than 25.5 million messages to legislators across the country. So it's not just federal based, but it's also state legislators, some local legislators, custom targets as well. But it's the idea that through our system, you can reach out to anyone and everyone to target them with a message. In 2012, we launched a product called Engage, and that's what I'll be walking you through today. But the idea was the web has changed. Things are different. This will address that change. And what do I mean by that? Well, back in the day, advocacy and engagement, when I say back in the day, I mean basically the past 20 years. But advocacy and engagement was a very one-way discussion. It was almost like sales as we see it now elsewhere. It was very much a, here's my product, buy my product, this is why my product is so great. That's kind of how it was with advocacy. It was, here's what you need to know, here's why you need to know it, and take action on it. As is with sales as well, a lot of people just said, no, I don't want to listen to you, or I don't know why, I don't trust you. And so advocacy in the old days was very much that one-way discussion. Information was centralized with that government relations person or that association. It only flowed outward upon request or upon sort of it was a push sale. It was a push idea. And it only happened at certain times. So what you had were folks that were, I have a bill that's coming to the floor of my state legislator or the Congress, and I want action on it, so I'm going to send out 1,000 emails to my membership to tell them to take action. I don't know about your email open rates, but I know that with ours, only about 35 or 40%, or even less than that, are opening those emails. That's just the nature of the game. And even fewer then are actually clicking through, and fewer then are actually taking action. That's just how email works. But if you imagine that with legislative advocacy, you'd see that by the end, if I send a message to 1,000 people, I may get 200 that were actually doing something, maybe less, maybe more, but it would be in that lower range. And why? Because for the most part, I haven't built a relationship with them. It's very much a one-way conversation of, here's what you need to know and here's why you need to know it. And thus, you need to take action because this bill affects you. But if I don't hit on one of those points and I don't create a conversation, then really you're feeling sort of left out in the cold, that there might not be a reason for me to really take action, or I don't fully get it, or I don't trust you with it. So how do we change that? What do we do? You'll see the limitations. Simplistic software, linear process, siloed communications. It meant that you had a poor response rate, that communities that could be building were fractured because they weren't being messaged to in the proper way. So what's new advocacy and engagement? What's the changing landscape? Well, how people consume and share information has changed, right? Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. There's a whole new way of sharing information, creating these conversations. It's not just me pushing news to you in one format. Either I'm calling you or I'm emailing you, but it's me creating conversations in various channels. Whether it's showing images of how these bills or, let's say, a tax effort might affect this industry, or it's putting up tweets or sharing stories from my users, from folks who may be affected by this healthcare bill, by whatever it might be. And it allows more and more people to get involved. So where before it was one email that then got forwarded if we're lucky, now it's a number of tweets that get promoted, that get shared, and you can imagine how networks can make these things go viral. And it's not the idea that every one of them will, but it's more of an idea that we can provide various outlets for our advocacy effort to bring them all back into the one thing that we want them to do, which is either share their story, sign a petition, write their legislator. Whatever the goal is, there are numerous ways for us to engage folks outside of what it used to be. So the strategy has to change, and the need to educate, engage, and equip the audience has to be the priority. So what do I mean by educate and engage? Well, the trifecta of effective advocacy, I know the trifecta of effective, it's a little weird, but the idea is simply that you start with this idea of educating and engaging and equipping folks. It's the concept of this issue means something to you and here's why. But I'm not just telling it to you, I'm showing it to you in various stories that your community is sharing, in various petitions and other things that I ask you to do year-round. What we're looking to do and what effective advocacy and engagement is these days is more of a trust and thought leadership stance rather than simply, I'm the big association or the nonprofit that knows about this, you need to turn to me. It's more of a, let's have a conversation, but let's do it in a way that makes it easy for folks to be part of that conversation. Let's give them talking points. Let's give them white papers. Let's not inundate them with content, but let's get them little bits and pieces here and there. News stories, right? Effective way to be in front of that is to share news content that relates to your issues while putting that alongside bullet points. So we're educating folks through news content, but we're equipping them with talking points, bullet points, white papers, and other things to really address the different groups that may be coming through. And finally, that engage piece is simply saying, now that I've got them in that door, let's get them to do something. And it's not just writing a letter anymore. It's now, let's get them to share their story. Let's get them to sign a petition. Let's get them to tweet their legislator, make a donation. Whatever it might be, make a phone call. These are new and different ways that we can get folks in the door so that they can affect change. They can move they can move the needle on that issue and say, I've got this many people doing this from this group, from this area. And how do I know that? Well, it comes down to measuring, targeting, and encouraging, right? That second pillar here is saying that now that I know what people are doing, let's get them to do more. Let's target them by saying, let's segment out the groups into different areas. Let's get them to say, you know what, give me everybody that lives in Oregon 3 or Michigan 04 or this specific state house district or this state Senate district. Give me everybody that lives there along with everything they're doing. So show me everybody that's opened my last 3 emails, that's taken action on my last pieces here, and that lives in this district, and I'm going to get them to do something else. So that idea is simply that we can, it's sort of what I call mass customization. It's segmentation. It's that idea that we can bring it down into smaller groups of people, and it's not a one-size-fits-all, let's email 1,000 people with the same message. It's now a targeted message and capability that allows you to measure, to target, and to encourage them. And finally, that comes back to the last pillar, which is basically conveying those results. What we've done with that first pillar, educate, engage, and equip, is humanize the issue, right? We're humanizing the issue to say that this issue means something to you. Jimmy can't go to college if this tax reform passes or doesn't pass, whatever it might be, but it's a way to bring that issue home. What we're doing in conveying results is we're humanizing the numbers now. We're humanizing the measure, target, and encourage area, where now it's saying that I can deliver something to a legislator, to a target, to my staff, to the executive leadership, and if more importantly, back to the website, back to the effort, whether it's mobile or web, and we'll show you what we're doing in both, but that we can deliver those results back so that we can encourage people to do more. And so you'll see how those arrows sort of fly between each of them because they're all interrelated. I'm getting folks in the door. I'm asking them to do more. I'm conveying those results out. I'm bringing those results back to ask people to do more, and I'm pushing those results out into the big world of saying, here's what we're doing. For this effort, we got this many letters. We ran a campaign earlier this year along with a different group that generated 4 million members in just over 4 million letters in just over 2 weeks. So the concept there was simply that we want to push that information back out into the real world to get more people involved and to show those people that were involved of the impact of their engagements. So quickly, a case study. eBay Main Street. Main Street is the grassroots community for advocates interested in how public policy impacts commerce. That's a great mission statement, but what eBay is doing really well here is they're pushing their issue down to the individual seller. So the concept here is not that it's a big bad corporation or nonprofit or association of they're out of touch with who we are. eBay, PayPal, StubHub, on their own, that seems to be very large, could be very easily pushed out of touch. But what they've done instead was they created eBay Main Street, where the idea for them now is that these issues affect you as a seller and your business, not us. And of course they do affect us, but they affect you. And that's what they've done is they've humanized the issue and brought it down to that lowest level. They've said, you know what, you're a seller on eBay, you're a seller on StubHub, you use PayPal. Did you know that you will be directly affected by this, this, and this? And so they educate their folks. They equip them with talking points so that they can go on to eBay itself and go on to StubHub itself and go on to message boards elsewhere and use those talking points to get people to understand that if you sell on these services and you use these services, you will be impacted by this. So yes, it affects eBay's bottom line, but they've sort of conveyed that message down to other folks to make them the champions of the effort. They track and encourage. Now, because they're on these different platforms and they're using this information, they can understand who's doing what, who's sharing this information, who's signing petitions, who's writing their legislator, who's tweeting about it. All of that information is captured so that I can do something more with it later on. And when I say later on, I not only mean to ask them to do more in the advocate realm, but I also mean ask them to do more in my Salesforce realm. So whatever I'm using Salesforce for, whether it's traditional CRM or more for event registrations and membership retention and acquisition, product sales in terms of white papers and other things for my nonprofit and association, all of those data points that we're getting from their advocate actions are all flowing into Salesforce. And they're all queryable in Salesforce so that now if I'm using other Salesforce tools or just using Salesforce itself for sales, for marketing, for messaging, for whatever, I can use those data points to get a better idea. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then finally, they're conveying the results back out. So the idea here is simply that I now know, hey, thank you for writing this letter. Did you know that 100,000 or 10,000 sellers just like you on our eBay marketplace all wrote their legislator, and we together have made change in Washington? That kind of thing is really powerful again. So what do I mean by measure, target, and encourage? We just saw what eBay was doing with pushing news content about eBay, about the different items that were happening out to their people. In the back end of Engage, the product, what you get now is a dashboard that quickly and easily shows you what people are doing. Who's making a call, who's writing a letter, who's tweeting an official, sharing a story, signing a petition, making a donation. These are distinct actions that we can ask people to do to gather data about them. We don't have to use them all, of course. If you just wanted to go straight advocacy and get people to write a letter, fantastic. That's our bread and butter. We've been doing that for 20 years. But the idea now is that you can change and you can ask people to do different things. They can do all sorts of things in support of your effort, and you can gain information about each of them based on those actions that you can use later. So we're adjusting campaigns and efforts based on the data. We're seeing what a specific engagement might be. So support real change in student debt repayment. I can see that over the course of 2 weeks, I had 6,600 actions taken by 678 people. That happens because if you imagine that I'm sending 10 letters per person, then each of those people could then take 678 actions and generate that many actions, right? Or activities, I should say. On the right-hand side, you'll see that it's quick and easy to share this information elsewhere by email, by Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever it might be. But wherever your people are, we can push this data out into different places. I should say data, but we can push these engagements, these interactions out into different places and on different ways so that people can get involved. Furthermore, on the back end, we can create these nice tear sheets that show us what that data means for specific legislators. So in this case, Dianne Feinstein, you'll see your legislator analytics. You can see the number of actions taken, the total advocates, the advocates taking action, advocates without action, mapping those advocates, exporting those advocates. All of that can be done through the back end, but the idea here is that we can get a great idea per legislator of what's going on. And finally, one of the nice pieces in development here as well, let me just go to it. Oh, the segmentation part. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. The segmentation part is really where we get into the bread and butter of it, both within Engage as well, but then within Salesforce. So whatever you're doing with the data, you can do it. And the nice part about that is that within Engage, I can do these searches for city, state, zip, state upper district, state lower district, by representation, by activity, by who these people are, their job titles, custom questions. Whatever information they've provided to us, we can search on within our system. The nice part about this as well is that this data gets transported over to Salesforce. So the data on city, state, zip, their district information, their legislation, their legislator representation, those types of things get transported from our system over to Salesforce, and you can now query on them within Salesforce and relate that to all of the other data that you have over there. Get back over here, sorry. Come on. My computer is asking me for something. Hold on. Okay, thank you. Let's go back and see about restarting. That third part there is encouraging them to action. So measure, target, and encourage, right? Measuring what's going on, targeting based on those search terms and search ideas, and then encouraging them to action. So you'll see this is me. Wow, I actually have my address in there. Didn't mean that to happen. But total actions over on the right-hand side, calls made, letters written. This is quick and easy information that's in our system that you can look at, but of course all of this data gets transferred over to Salesforce. I always love this slide because it always throws people aback, but the idea here is that we're looking for the right message at the right time, through the right medium, to the right group. It's a long-winded way of saying that I want to target people based on what they're used to and what they're doing. So the data that we have within our system, those interactions that they've taken, the letters they've sent to their legislators are all data points where, sure, it's the Avengers here, but more importantly, it's each individual person is different. And we can try to group them together because they're all in one group here, but if we wanted to address them individually, we can do that as well through the data points that Engage provides. So that's one of those nice things that you get from Engage, is not just those advocacy tools, and I'll show you those again in a minute, but also the data points that are generated from it, so that I can message them later on through whatever method that might be. Twitter, Vine, Facebook, email, phone, whatever I'm doing with that information, I can do it. So conveying that conveying that message to target legislators, this is that tear sheet that you saw a minute ago. Even better is what we're looking at conveying now, which is called the virtual lobbyist. In development at this point, but the idea here is that we can create individual tear sheets for these legislators and take them to the legislator when we go visit them. This is that third prong, and you'll see it again in a minute, of conveying the message. It's not just about and humanizing the numbers, right? It's not just that we've got 1,000 letters or 200 phone calls or 300 tweets. It's that each one of those has the potential to lobby on our behalf the legislator, or more importantly, the staff of the legislator, right? You want to go in there with your messaging so that the staff of the legislator sees that human element and understands that these are real people. These are real videos, real letters. Yes, we have the quantity, but we also have the quality of what we're talking about. Specific letters, specific videos, data points on a map. This is the information that these folks want because they want to be reelected, first of all, but they want to reach out to these folks and show them the compassion that they've got in that legislator, right? So the legislator wants this data and you want to convey this data, this is the perfect way to do so. We're gathering up the information we've picked off from our folks, from our advocates, from our stakeholders, and we're bundling it up in a way that makes it very approachable for the staff and the legislator, or even the target, right? We don't have to have a legislator target. We can target anyone to then be able to see what we're talking about. The nice part about it, again, just quickly, I know I've talked about it, mentioned it a few times, is that the data can flow back and forth. It goes at the intervals of your choosing. So if you wanted it to go every 4 hours, if you wanted it to go once a day, what we deliver from Engage to Salesforce is contact information, activity information, and legislator and district information. Those are the three big things that we ship over, and we can take data back from Salesforce. So if you wanted to bring data back into Engage in terms of updated address information, updated other fields and custom fields, you can do that. But depending on what you want your database of record to be, we are an add-on that can really help you move forward with what you're doing with Salesforce. So the way I describe it is we're not here to replace your other Salesforce widgets and any other App Exchange items that you're using. Those are there to help you get more information and to better sell or sell events or sell products or get people involved, member retention, member acquisition. All of that is great. What we're here to do is one, advocacy, right? The ability to reach out and talk to legislators, to talk to targets, to create communities around content, around actions, around equipping them with information, and building trust and thought leadership, and then taking all of the data points that are generated from that, everything that happens, to then help you with sales, marketing, retention, events, and everything else that you're doing. So that's one of the nice parts. I'm going to get back into the trifecta of effective advocacy and engagement, but quickly what I'll show you is just what we're talking about when we mean reaching out to legislators. So I'm going to show you just a few examples of some of the sites that are built on our platform and have our tools within them. As you should know, this is the Footwear Distributors and Retailers of America. It is a fascinating group that deals with footwear across the U.S. and the world. But what you didn't know is that they're a 3-person operation here in D.C. They have an office of 3 people downtown, and one of them, all of his other duties, he manages the website and the actions as well. And it takes very little time, because what we do, and that news content that I spoke about earlier, is not only that, remember that part where I said that we have 180 people covering Capitol Hill? Well, we generate roughly 200 articles a day on everything that's going on the Hill. We also license content from about 4,500 other sources, or 4,000 other sources, and mix the two together to deliver to you the news that you're looking for. So clients come to us with search terms, and we deliver to them the full text of both news stories, as you'll see, Newswire, any number of different pieces of content that they can integrate directly into their website. So you'll see when I talk about content, I'm not talking about a link away to somewhere else. What I'm talking about is the full text of the news story displaying directly within your site. In this case, it's a Newswire story about EC Vision takes the work out of conflict materials traceability. Whatever it might be, whatever your topic is, we can deliver to you content as it relates to that. So as a background, we work with groups from the American Beverage Association to Walmart to Costco to the small national small boating legislative association out of Annapolis. So it can be groups very large down to groups very small, but we deliver to them news content as it relates to their issues. That's, if you think about it, that's a great just even foundation for your social media strategy. If you have one, that's great. Leverage the content that we're delivering and bring more people in the door to read those news stories on your site. If you don't have a social media strategy, this is an easy entrance. Imagine just pointing people to 2 or 3 articles a day from your Twitter, from LinkedIn, from Facebook, wherever it might be, to your website. FDRA, 3 people again, have a much better interactivity with their folks, a much better time on site, much better pages per site, because that's all they do. They send around a few tweets a day about news articles that are on their site, and they've already got folks that come back and read those articles. Now that they're in the door, now they can learn more about the issues. You'll notice the key issues on the right-hand side, the latest news down the right-hand side on the bottom. These are how we draw people. This is how we draw folks in so that they learn more about the specific issues. We make it very approachable. So within the back end of the site, you're able to quickly and easily put in the bullet points or the quick background. We're not providing 10 pages of content in one place right now. What we're doing instead is giving people content in little nibbles that they can get, and if they want to dive deeper, that's great. But we're not going to scare them off with initials. What we can do with content here then is attach a call to action to it. Maybe this Newswire, if it was a New York Times article, a Washington Post article, the Chicago Tribune, maybe one of ours, Roll Call or Congressional Quarterly. Uh-oh, my screen just went dark. Oh, there it is. Maybe it's one of ours, Congressional Quarterly, and maybe we've written something that goes entirely against the cause that you're fighting. Why not draw people in? They're going to be reading that news story somewhere. Why not point them to your site, and then over here put a response or a rebuttal and say, hey, New York Times, thank you for writing this article, but you're wrong, and here's why. Here are the 3 bullet points. Here's my white paper. And even better, you can put a call to action right here as well. And it can say, you know what? Let's write your legislator about this issue, because the New York Times has it wrong, and if that's what people are reading, then they need to be told there's something different. Share your story about how the New York Times is wrong. We're going to ship all these comments back to the New York Times later. Something to that effect. Sign a petition. Pledge to vote. These are different ways that we get people involved. They're reading a news article. They're seeing content. They're understanding what we're trying to convey. We're building trust and thought leadership, and now we're leveraging that for them to do something more. And that's where we gather those data points into that back end that we can ship over to Salesforce and do so much more with. Quickly, I'll just show you in terms of what does it mean to send a letter to a legislator. What we do is we district match people. So as an organization, as a nonprofit, you can go in and create what we call engagements. That's the share your story, sign a petition, tweet your legislator, make a donation. All of those, make a phone call. All of those are different ways that we can get people involved and different data points that we can collect on the back end. So the traditional letter to the Hill is still a very powerful piece. So what we do then is we put up, or the association I should say, nonprofit, whomever it might be, puts up the message that they want folks to then send. I enter in my information, I match to my legislator, and then I see the letter that I'm supposed to send. Once I click submit on this, it'll send this message to my House of Representative, Eleanor Holmes Norton. And if I lived anywhere outside of the district, I'd actually have real representation of 2 senators, but that's not the case. But for most of the country, then they'll also see their 2 senators here as well, or whomever you're trying to target. You know, different groups target the president, the vice president, governors, lieutenant governors, state house, state senate, whomever you're trying to target. This is just how easy it is for folks to be there and to send a message. It's just that simple. One of the nice things that we're doing is we're bringing this to the mobile world. So we understand that a lot of the groups that we work with have their members and they're not at computers all day. Specifically, let's talk doctors, nurses, dentists, all of those people in that medical realm, sales folks, other people and environmentalists, whomever it might be. These are folks that are out in the field. These are folks that are surveying landscapes, that are doing other things throughout the day, serving people. They don't have time to be at their computers, and when they do, they're answering emails or doing other things. What we've done then is we've created a new mobile experience that brings the best of Engage and how we're getting people in the door and getting them to take action to a mobile device. So all of the stuff that you're already doing in terms of curating content, in terms of putting out calls to action, in terms of Twitter and Facebook, Twitter and YouTube or Vimeo, all of that is incorporated into a personally branded mobile app, right? It has your branding on it. It has headlines, video, take action, discussion. Those headlines that we talked about a minute ago that you saw on the website, they're now within this app. And you'll see that commentary piece here. You'll see the take action call here, and the rest of the content is right there. That's how easy it is for people to be able to stay up to date on your issues. It's under your brand. It's in the App Store under your name. Folks download it. They can get right into it and start to understand what's going on. YouTube and video, you're already doing YouTube elsewhere. Most organizations are. We can bring that in here. If you're not, that's fine. We can leave it off. Same with Twitter. You're already curating that content elsewhere. There's no need to do it twice, so we just bring that content that you're already working with elsewhere into the system. Looking up legislators, it's as easy as coming to Congress, entering in my address here, and then seeing the legislators that represent me. Very simple. But the power of this and this mobile app altogether is the take action piece. And what's really great about this is that we've created it with push notifications, and we've created it with the idea that the phone will store your information. Nobody else will be able to access it outside of the application other than it'll be stored in our database. But the nice part about this is, if you can imagine, I can come in here, I can take action on something, I'll see my message, I'll be able to enter in my information. But once I enter in my information once, it'll automatically match me to my recipients, and I'll be able to send a message quickly. So you can see how doing a push notification to somebody that says, hey, Brian, take action on this today. This bill is just dropped, or share your story, or whatever it might be. I can hit OK on that push notification and get taken directly into that last step that you saw, where it gives me the message, it gives me the recipients, because it already knows who I am. And so we've taken action out of being a 2 or 4 step process and into being a 2-step process. So it's no longer, I've got to go to the website, I've got to load the form, I've got to read this, I've got to hit submit, I've got to bring that down and see what it's saying. It's now, I click on the push notification, I click on OK on send, and I'm done. And you can imagine how we're lowering the bar there so that we can create that advocacy ladder that we're talking about of where people are and bringing people in the door and getting them to do more, so we can measure, target, and encourage later, convey better results, and start the whole circuitous process all over again. That's the name of the game in changing advocacy landscape, right? People are doing it more towards sales and marketing. Yes, you need to have that policy background, but to properly get your issue moving, you need to be thinking more of sales and marketing. And how do I message folks properly? How do I get them involved? How can I target them? How can I get them to do things? And then even better, sharing that data across the board. You know, government relations and advocacy should no longer be in a corner, but all the data that it generates can be used by retention, acquisition, by sales, event sales, product sales, white paper sales. All of those different people can use that same data that you're generating to do their job and to lift the whole boat across the board, right? Everybody is lifted by the data and by the actions that are being taken. So not only are we pushing to get some tax or health or whatever it might be issue changed, education, environment, but the backside of that is that everybody that helps us there helps us elsewhere. And we can start to understand who they are, what they're doing, and why they're doing it. And with that, I end today's, I wanted to make one plug. For those folks that are going to be out at Dreamforce, I will be speaking. We'll be talking about this. Obviously, Engage and CQ Roll Call will have our own booth. We are back-to-back with Idealists, so if you go over and see them, you should absolutely come and see us. But the idea here is simply I'll be speaking on exactly what we talked about today. The changing nature of advocacy, why you need to be thinking more in a sales and marketing standpoint while also realizing that policy is still the cornerstone. But more importantly is as we get people to take action with their legislators and with other folks, we're gathering data points that help our bottom line across the board, that help us with sales, that help us with retention and everything else. So if you didn't get enough of me today, you're welcome to join and listen again come Dreamforce. And of course, I'm happy to talk at any point outside of this realm and discuss, how our partnership with Idealist, how we work together so that they deliver sort of that best-in-class, how this is done with Salesforce, and we deliver basically how advocacy is changing. We can be that resource for you and the tools to get people to take action that will filter that data right into your Salesforce, and Idealist will tell you how to use it best across the board. Are there any questions?
All right. Thank you so much, Bryan. That was wonderful. And I think as a marketer, I was really drawn to the crossover that you were talking about between marketing and advocacy. It seems like you guys are thinking about this in some interesting ways. And it's always good for marketers to hear that, the information you gain isn't siloed away for a specific purpose, that it can integrate. And obviously that's a big part of the value that the Salesforce integration brings as well. So thanks for touching on that.
Sure.
So let's see, we do have a couple questions here. So the first one is from Riju, and her question was, last I knew that political boundary information like district codes for advocates was not flowing into Salesforce. Is it now available?
The API has been updated, and they're making those changes now. So from Engage to Salesforce, Frank, what's it going to be?
In the next 30 days.
In the next 30 days, that information will be flowing between the two.
Oh, great. Okay.
I think they're in the final stages of testing now, and then we're just going to deploy it. We're hoping to get it out there before Dreamforce, but it might be right afterwards.
Gotcha. Okay. Excellent. And then a follow-up question to that about Salesforce was for make a donation piece, or to make a donation piece, is it possible to map it to Salesforce object rather than your custom activity object?
I'm happy to ask that question. I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but it's an easy one. I can go talk to the developers down the hall and get you the answer you need.
Gotcha. Okay. Great. So Riju, we could follow up with you after the webinar on that question. And then it looks like there was one from Todd with CQ Engage for Salesforce app. Will we eventually be able to import political data like districts, politicians, et cetera, into Salesforce?
Yes, absolutely. So, well, it depends on to what level that's going to be. That's a bread and butter of ours. We have a whole department here, a research department that actually keeps all of that data and updates it throughout the year as things happen. So we're looking at new and creative ways of developing or delivering that data into Salesforce. At this point, it's going to be a very small, it's going to be, who's the legislator, a very small bit of information about them. We'll be doing that district mapping for you on our side. And then what districts they live in, both congressional and then state house, state senate. And then, what am I missing? So that's going to be the initial. As we move forward, we're looking at doing even more, bringing over more more of the legislator data and more of the other things that we collect here, and how we can best use it within Salesforce to provide you those sort of queries that you might need.
Wonderful. Great. And then a final question was about sort of how to use the conversations that are happening on social media to bring those people into your fold. So, for example, if you have dozens of people who like and engage with you on Facebook or Twitter, but you don't necessarily have them in your CRM yet, can you talk a little bit about how Engage might help kind of bridge that gap and take them to the next level?
Sure. So One of the nice things about Engage is the Tweet Your Legislator piece. I'll answer it in a slightly different way, but the Tweet Your Legislator or target piece allows your organization and the stakeholders and advocates within to tweet out messages to those legislators with hashtags, short codes, and other things that people can get back to your effort with. So as your advocates are tweeting these things out under the same hashtags and conversation topics that other folks are using, right? So the idea there is that you want to not only, sometimes you want to create your own hashtag, but more often than not, you'd want to jump into a conversation of a hashtag. And so that will be a way for folks who are already out there talking about it, already out there looking at the different ways that they're interacting. You can bring that information and draw people in through that. There are other tools out there, of course, Attentively and others that we work with that help to also understand those conversations from a larger standpoint. They bring down data points on the people who are having those conversations, and then you can import that data into Engage as well. So it's a nice mixture between two tools. There are others conversationally. There are other different tools out there as well that you can use to get background information on the people having the conversations and the influencers out there, and then inject your own commentary into those conversations so that those people see what's going on, and you can especially message them separately as well.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, and then one final question. So I think this was a follow-up to the question about mapping political data. Todd says the ideal would be for a Salesforce user to view a contact record and see what district they're in and who are their legislators with legislator contact information, all without leaving Salesforce. So it sounded like that's kind of where you're going. I'm not sure if that.
That is where we'll be in the next 30 days, minus
okay.
the legislator contact information. It will have basic contact information. It will have their office. I think it will have their office phone number delivered. But the basic idea is that when you look at a record in Salesforce, you'll see the districts that they live in and their representation.
Wonderful.
So that you can then buy that later on.
Okay, great. Okay. So I think that's actually just about all we have time for today, and it looks like we got through the questions. So thank you, Bryan and Frank and Penny behind the scenes as well today for all of the wonderful content. And again, we'll be sharing out the slide deck and recording within the next couple days to everyone who attended.
Right, wonderful. Thank you, everyone. As always, please feel free to reach out to Idealists, to us, to both, and you know, we live and breathe this stuff. We love it. So if you have an issue or something else that you're looking at advocating on, we're here to help.
Great. All right. Thanks again, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.